Hello, and welcome to our introduction to the Beas WMS integration. Beas is Boyum's world-class manufacturing solution. It provides comprehensive support for multi-level BOMs, advanced costing, planning for the shop floor and your supply chain, as well as web-based factory data collection. Produmex WMS is Boyum's industry-leading warehouse management system. It combines mobile technology, barcode scanning, adherence to global standards, and advanced functionality that results in peerless accuracy, maximum efficiency, and gives you critical business insights. To use the integration, you'll need to set up a few things. First, you'll set up the WMS notification listener. Then you'll set up the Beas managed server and confirm that the Beas web apps are working. You'll configure the transaction notification stored procedure in line with the documentation indicating how to set that up so that both Beas and WMS work together in the same database environment. You'll check that the WMS notification listener is configured correctly, and you'll run the Beas WMS integration database check tool. This tool reviews critical data in your database, and it looks for various configurations that you may need to be aware of when using the integration. For example, it provides information giving you important information such as the versions of the product. It gives you warnings to make you aware that certain configurations exist but aren't necessarily an issue, and it gives you critical messages about certain configurations that exist in your database that may not be compatible with the integration. The integration supports a wide range of functions shared between Beas and WMS. This includes the WMS best before date, WMS zone types, WMS shelf life delivery settings, that's over in the item master, the WMS reason for the purchase return, WMS quality status for production, again, set up at the item level. If it's not set there, it uses the global default in the organization structure. It also supports WMS batch attributes with some limitations. WMS SSCCs or pallets are supported in the Beas work order receiving process. Likewise, WMS locations are available for configuration in the Beas work order. So if you want to say different work orders will be processed at different locations, you can do that. WMS information is critical in the Beas material reservation, time receipt, MRP, and production goods issue screen. The integration also supports quality control transfers as well as WMS information in the Beas web apps. We recommend that you use the WMS mobile devices when doing inventory transactions in the warehouse, but they are available through the Beas web apps as well. There's a few different picking processes that we really want to talk about with the integration. Remember, there's really two ways that you pick product in a production environment. One is you pick raw materials going into production, and two, you pick sellable goods that are being shipped outbound to a customer. So in this case, we'll talk about kind of both of those situations. You have an SAP sales order. In the MRP world, it sees that demand, and the MRP goes ahead and decides if it's going to need to create purchase orders for raw materials so that it can produce the finished good indicated on the sales order. In that case, it says, okay, I'm going to create the purchase order, and then Produmex WMS reception on the mobile device would be used to receive those inbound raw materials into the Produmex Beas shared warehouse. Beas MRP would also go ahead and create the work orders in Beas. So these work orders, when they start being produced, are going to require, of course, the raw materials. And so the picking for production process is going to kick in. And this is where we're picking the raw materials that are being brought to the Beas production center the production line that we'll look at in a minute, and consumed using the Beas web app that handles the work order issue. Picking for production is a fairly straightforward process on the WMS application. It does follow the WMS picking for production process that's available with SAP work orders. In this case, it's going to be used with Beas work orders. When Beas completes the manufacture of the finished good, then the work order goods receipt process in Beas receives those finished goods into at the production line, and then Produmex WMS can be used to put those finished goods away into the permanent storage. Then perhaps time passes and customer places an order for that finished good. WMS pick list is created for it. The picking happens of that finished good out of permanent storage. It's staged, it might be packed, and then it's shipped off to the customer, and the sales order delivery is created. This is picking for production. You also have an option called pick list for production. It's exactly the same as what we just talked about, except that Beas creates a WMS pick list. And this gives the WMS handheld a variety of enhanced capabilities, such as the ability to wave pick raw materials for a production order. Everything else flows essentially the same way as we just saw. The main difference is the pick list being created in WMS for the raw materials. The final option we can talk about is a non-integrated solution. So prior to the integration, or you may have reasons why you want to keep production in one warehouse and basically inventory in another warehouse, then you can use a non-integrated scenario. In this case, it flows essentially similar. You just now have two warehouses, and you'll use stock transfers to move goods between the two warehouses. So there won't be a WMS picking per se. It'll be more of a stock transfer scenario. There are some limitations with the integration. The special WMS serial numbers are not supported by the integration. The integration does support SAP serial numbers. This is the case where you're using the specialized WMS serial numbers. On the inventory tab of the SAP general settings, where it deals with serial numbers and batches, we require that you use the management method of every transaction. Additionally, issue primarily has to be set to batch and serial numbers. The number of decimal places defined for an item in WMS and that same value in Beas has to match. The WMS second batch number is not supported. The WMS expiry definition for production is also not supported. Now, the system does support expiry date, but this special case where you're using expiry definitions to create item-specific calculations of expiry dates in WMS is not going to work with the Beas integration. And finally, catch weights is not supported by the integration. There's a wide range of documentation available on how the integration works, available not only in our wiki, but in the Beas documentation as well. There's videos on the subject, and please regularly check the release notes. Tip here, try to stay as current with the latest releases as possible. We regularly enhance the integration. We're expecting a new release of Beas that will add several new functions that are not covered by this presentation. And so let's take a quick look at the integration. First, we're going to look at the definition of the Produmex production line. To do that, we're going to go into our organization structure. And the org structure is going to have our various warehouses. We'll go into what we call the general warehouse. This is our shared production and warehousing facility. So here in this warehouse, we're doing functions in Beas as well as WMS. We have a zone here called manufacturing. And for those of you who are familiar with Produmex WMS production, you'll recognize the production lines here. For those of you who are familiar with Beas, the production line in WMS tells WMS where raw materials will be delivered to and where to pick up the finished goods. So you'll continue in the Beas world to do your operations at the various resources that are indicated in your routing steps. In this case, though, WMS needs to be aware of the production environment. This is a Beas type production line, and it indicates the bin where raw materials will be picked. So this is kind of the main configuration you'll want to deploy when you're using the integration. The next thing we will do is take a look at our work orders. So here we have an example where we have one work order with 3 positions. So this is something that's used in Beas frequently so that we can have perhaps multiple instances of a similar production process. Perhaps we're limited in a lot size, and so we wind up with a different position when we've reached the maximum lot size and the carryover quantities on the next position. In this case, I'm going to have 3 positions that all do the same thing. One is going to show picking for production, one is going to show pick list for production, and the last one is available for picking on the Beas terminal. This is our production order, our work order, and as we can see, there are 3 raw materials that have to be brought in to be able to produce this finished good. Now, before we can begin, we need to check and make sure that our production line is indicated on the assembly. So we'll drill into that. We'll come over here to extended, and as you can see here, the WMS production line is populated. You have to set this for all work orders in Beas where you want to be able to use WMS to draw raw materials. And there are ways of defaulting this so that you don't have to manually enter this, of course, but this is the critical link. So let's take a look at our picking for production process. To do that, we're going to come over here to our WMS mobile device. And on that device, we're going to go into production. And here we're going to select picking for production. In picking for production, we're going to do normal picking. And now the system is prompting us for the production order. And so we'll either scan it from our Beas work order, if we've printed it out, or we can type it in or type a partial, and as you can see, it goes directly to the entries. So in this case, I'm going to select our first entry here. And we're going to go ahead and say there's no movable location. We're not going to put the raw materials on a cart. And the system goes ahead and shows us all the raw material lines on the device that are indicated in the production order in Beas. And so now the process we're going to go through here on the WMS handheld is the exact same process we would do if we were using WMS standalone with SAP production. Select the item we want to pick. Because we're not doing a cart, we're going to do each item one at a time. We identify the location that we're picking it from. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and scan the barcode for our bin. I've typed it in here, but you would certainly have driven your forklift to that location, shot the barcode on the bin, select the product from the list, or scan the product if it has a barcode, and indicate the quantity that we're being picked. And then finally, we'll put in the destination location. Again, we'll scan that when we move the product over to that location. And the first of our 3 lines is now picked. We'll repeat the process for the next 2. In this case, I'm going to pull it off of a pallet. So we scan the pallet and we select the product that's on the pallet. Again, we typically would scan that and indicate the quantity that we're moving over to the production area. And again, I'm scanning this one at a time because I did not put it on a movable location. So I didn't move it to my cart and then move the cart over and then scan it out. And repeat for the final product, final raw material. Again, we're going to scan the barcode. And by scanning the barcode, I've saved myself, by scanning the SSCC, I've saved myself having to do several other entries because all the information was understood from the pallet itself. Oh, we still have one more because I think we only had 2 on that pallet. So at this point, the picking is done. So now what's happened is those raw materials have been moved from permanent storage over to the production area, the production line as indicated in the WMS organization structure. When we come back to the Beas work order and reopen that work order, you now see there's a drill down for each raw material. And this represents the reservation that was created for each one of these items. So this reservation ties those units of inventory to the production order. And you can see here in that last example, I was able to pick 2 at one location and 1 in another. So this is the example of picking for production. Now at this point, we can go ahead into Beas on the terminal and the production team can log in and you can do a goods issue of the materials. With the goods picked with Produmex WMS and delivered to our production area, we can now use the Beas terminal to issue the raw materials to the Beas work order. So here we'll go and look at our application for goods issue. We'll indicate the Beas work order and we'll indicate the position within that work order. The system automatically understands the reserved inventory is available for us, and we would continue the Beas process of issuing the raw materials to this production order. But in the world of the integration, we're going to come back and focus on another workflow. That other workflow is our pick list for production. This is similar to what we've done before, so I'm not going to explain each of the steps. The steps are similar to before, and I am going to confirm that our work order position has got the correct production line, and it does, our production line number 4. Next, we're going to go and right-click on the position and select a new Beas option called Pick List for Production. It has a little WMS icon here. This is a function that will create WMS pick lists. So it lists all of the raw materials that Beas requires for this work order. Down here at the bottom, it shows you all the pick lists that have been created for this work order. And at the top, you've got 2 very important icons. This shows you that the Beas server process is up and running, and this shows you that the WMS notification listener is up and running. So let's go ahead and create a pick list. First, again, you can confirm your production line is all set. You can either manually assign the quantities you want for each production, for each raw material line, or you could force the default and do an as is, which is what I'm going to do. So all pre-assigned brought over the requested quantity. And we'll go ahead and create the pick list. Now, it first comes over in a not created state. And notice that the little icon grayed out. It was disabled. It takes a moment or 2 as the notification listener goes in the background and creates the pick list. When this comes back to life, we go ahead and hit the reload button, and you can now see the pick list is out there. Our process is now going to pick up on the WMS handheld device. Again, we're going to come back to our device. We're going to instead do pick list for production. And here we now see all the pick lists that are available to us for production. In this case, this is one that was already out there, and this is the guy we just created, document 190, which is wave 190 listed on the Beas pick for production screen. So we'll take that and we begin our standard picking process. It asks us to select an item we want to pick. So we'll take the first item, and you also notice that it doesn't have enough of one of our products to do one pick, so it winds up splitting it into two picks. Again, no movable location. Identify the pick location. I'm going to walk over there, scan the barcode for that bin. Now I'm going to scan the barcode on the product and indicate the quantity I need, in this case 4. The items are picked. Repeat, go ahead and scan bin, scan the product. And indicate the quantity needed, in this case 8. Items are picked. And now we got to get the last item. And again, we're going to have 2 picks for this. Here's the first 3, followed by the last unit. And here we're going to go to a permanent storage bin in our WMS warehouse and pick that item. And scan the item we're picking off the shelf. The item's picked, and it asks us where we're going to put this down on. So we're going to go ahead and put this down on production line 04. And at that point, picking is complete for that pick list. So now we come back over here, we reload this, and we can now see that that pick list is now closed. So when we come back over here, reload our Beas work order position, we can now see the results of that picking operation. Again, reservations hold those items at the production line for this Beas work order. Production continues in Beas using all the standard Beas functions. We have plenty of videos and e-learning content on how all that works. The final example, and we'll do this fairly quickly, is when we're doing picking on the Beas terminal. And here again, we put in our Beas work order and our Beas position on that work order. And we go ahead and we select an item we want to process. And now we would have the ability to pick from any Produmex WMS bin location we want to. Now, some of the material in this case happens to already be in our production line, but certainly if for this work order we wanted to go out into the warehouse, we could go ahead and do that. So that's the real quick example of drawing material directly from the Beas terminal application. So I'd like to thank you for spending a few minutes to learn about the Produmex Beas integration, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.